at the Smithsonian magazine. My background has been so altered that there's no record of me in the Smithsonian for the contest that I won. It's every year except for my year, it's missing. My information has been so altered that, and they can do that. I mean, they have the power to change everything about you.
Sounds like one of the Black Mirror episodes me and Jen have been watching recently, where this tech genius lady alters people's realities and backgrounds. So, all right, we were talking about the unalivement list then, being over 10, and you also talked about judges who get promoted. But on that unalivement list, I've been meaning to ask you this for a long time, actually, Kirby, and I don't think I ever have. On the unalivement list, we've got the judge who, a gunman dressed as a FedEx delivery man, shot and unalived the son of U.S. District Judge Esther Salas and wounded her husband Sunday afternoon at their home. And that was the son of the judge overseeing the Deutsche Bank Epstein trial. What were your thoughts when that story broke 5 years ago now?
Well, there's something called the banker suicides. I do cover some of the banker suicides.
Let's say unalived.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, keep going.
I'm just trying to figure out how to phrase this.
Okay.
We know, for example, that J.P. Morgan was involved. We know that Deutsche was involved. Okay. However, what people do not realize and is that they are part of this. I'm going to use Danny Casollero's term of this octopus. The banks are part of this octopus. And frankly, I am in the middle of writing how the family with the letter R, this banking family with the letter R, are about to ascend and take over the throne of, your country, sit on the throne of England. And I go back historically and I show how these banks came into existence, how they relate to one another. And of course, when a banker knows too much, that person is made to disappear. If a judge knows too much, like in the case of his last name was Woods, and Woody Harrelson's father, who was a trained CIA unaliver, did that job, and he also worked at the JFK situation. So if someone, whether be it a banker or a judge or someone who gets in the way, which is why Acosta did what he was told. He knows the score. If you don't do what you're told. So that, that's because that person was not doing what they were supposed to do, and that person had to be eliminated. Now, if you're not eliminated, you are given a promotion. But if you're going to actually tell the world, now, through the banks, the role of Leon Black is exposed if one studies it the way that I study it. The role of his father is exposed and why he was unalived. The role of how the U.S. takes over other countries, because it's not just our country we're talking about here. This is a very big thing. It crosses borders. It crosses party lines. This is a very evil, and it didn't just begin, let's say, after World War II, which is what a lot of other indie media people claim. This has been ongoing since the founding fathers, who came over from England and brought with them certain traditions. Now, and that's how I look at it, and that's how I write about it. In fact, Maria Farmer did say that she is a descendant of 2 founding fathers. So then the question becomes, was she selected because of her bloodline and was Annie Farmer then propositioned to have J.E.'s child because of her bloodline. So this is a bloodline thing. And if someone steps out of line, because when you look at the unalivement of the bankers, they will show how Jess Staley was used in order to get some of the people in your government to do certain things to advance him, because he knew that he and then it would lead, let's say, for example, to how Glenn Dubin went from driving a taxi cab to now owning Jackie Kennedy Onassis's Park Avenue apartment and being one of the most wealthiest men in the world. And of course, he was paired off with J.E.'s so-called girlfriend of 8 to 9 years. I do not believe they were as much of a girlfriend boyfriend as J.E. was with Ghislaine. And how then she was given to Glenn Dubin. But Glenn Dubin is now a very powerful and very wealthy man. Well, that is then learned if you untangle the banking situation, at which point you will also see how the blackmail was conducted. So people who know too much and are not going with the program, they're eliminated in any manner. And that's a good manner. You know, send a UPS guy to your door and pew, pew, you're gone.
So you're saying this judge knew too much, or was giving a decision that wasn't in the favor of the club?
Yeah, anyone who is removed is not doing what they're told. And they can be removed in several ways. They can be demoted, as in the case of the Promise Software. So the judge that ruled in favor of the Hamiltons, for example, in the Promise Software, Bill and Nancy Hamilton, who ruled in their favor and said, yes, the government did deceive you. And I am saying they owe you money. Well, that judge, not only was it overturned, like the case with the girls, with the J.E. victims, that case was overturned. The government decided, one judge decided, yeah, you guys were not told about the non-prosecution agreement. Well, what happened to that? It was overturned. With the Promise case, that judge was not only overturned, but he was demoted. He was removed from the bench, and in his place was a very friendly person who should have never been presiding over that case. That is how this system operates. And people have to open your eyes and don't look at what they want you to look at, because what they want you to look at is to distract you from a much larger, very large operation.
Yeah, well said. They've got to have complete control of the legal system to control everything else, basically. And if anyone plays up, then they just weaponize it with lawfare and put that person away. So earlier on, then you did touch on this other story that came out that Virginia was extremely distressed, and you've said this is BS. This is the Mail a couple of days ago, about losing her multi-million-pound Prince Andrew payment 2 weeks before her unalivement. She was being sued by Rena O for falsely describing her as a girlfriend of J.E. and one of his recruiters. The £7.5 million lawsuit will now pass on to Virginia's estate following her death. Blah, blah, blah. The 41-year-old is believed to have received a fortune from Prince Andrew, paid her around $12 million. Sources close to Virginia have reportedly said she feared losing her wealth in the weeks leading up to her death. And they also said she'd become depressed over the collapse of her marriage and losing her teenage kid to her husband. So, yeah, so they're basically just dogpiling on her now, aren't they, to feed this narrative of why she did it. End of story, no further investigation required.
And also, if you notice, they focus only on the money she got from, quote, Prince Andrew. She got money from J.E. multiple times. She got money from the compensation fund. She got money from the settlement from the banks. Okay, she got money from Ghislaine Maxwell. It wasn't just, and so she, you know what? She would never have lost that case because she wrote about it a long time before I saw it happen in real time. How Rena and her went at it online on what's his name, Twitter. But it was happening. Even now today, I have people trying to fight with me, and I just block them because I know that they will try to embroil you into some drama so that they can get you into the court system. Once they get you into the court system, so we have to wonder. I wonder what's Rena's real role. I have to wonder because if you're really a survivor, then you would want to help another person who was in the same shoes. Theoretically, you were both there. You were both doing things that you probably didn't want to do. One thing that I think people do not understand. Some of the women, I'm going to say, who did as they were told and didn't start bickering with each other, like let's say Virginia and Rena, they became well-known movie stars. They became very well-paid models, like we see Naomi Campbell, right? They became a part of, they started working for the World Bank. They became politicians. These people are embedded into our society, and they don't talk about the men who are embedded into our society who were in a position like that. So I have to go back to something that can be checked, and that would be what Paul Benassi said. And this can be checked by just pulling up his deposition, which is online on YouTube. You can find it. And one of his statements was, you know what? I just lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. Can you just tell me what I just trying to say?
Yes, you was referencing Paul Benassi's statement. You said people can find it online. And we were talking about...
yes, I got it. Yeah. So he said that he had been basically in this thing from the time he was a young boy, I think either 3 or 4 years old. And again, Michael Aquino was part of what was happening in his instance. And of course, Boys Town and all of that. And he was told that once he went through this, let's call it the system, once he was no longer of use, let's say, as a child being transported, he was going to be given a position in the government. So be made an ambassador. And then from being an ambassador, just that he would first be told, go to the military, then be made an ambassador. Well, I want to take this back, and this is going to shock a lot of people. Shirley Temple, everybody knows who Shirley Temple is. Wasn't she made an ambassador? Shirley Temple Black. She was made an ambassador. I want to explain to people that this did not begin with the Franklin case. It did not begin with the J.E. case. This has been systematic throughout, long before any of us were here. Shirley Temple was used in the same manner as Paul Benassi, and was in fact went with the program and was made an ambassador, just like Paul Benassi said he was going to be made an ambassador. That's what happened. And she was allowed to live.
Yep. And let me just give Rena O's legal response as well, just to complete this. So this is what her lawyer stated in the court filing. Considering the high-profile nature of the J.E. Maxwell Prince Andrew story, Virginia knew that accusing O, a fellow victim of such horrible things, would maximize the spread and harm and damage to O. Virginia has maliciously reiterated and republished these defamations and slanders in prior and subsequent tweets and interviews on podcast, TV, of magazines, as well as her memoirs entitled Billionaire's Playboy Club. These defamations and slanders by the defendant are causing O great harm. But even if O is claiming X, this would only settle at Y, which would be a fraction of X. So it would not have wiped out what Virginia has got from Prince Andrew, Maxwell, the
Exactly.
banks, etc. So it's
Exactly.
a known story, isn't it?
It's a known story, but that's all we're seeing is non-stories. Now, as far as people who believe we're going to get actual records from, let's say, an autopsy, or I don't believe that that's true either. They can fake anything. They can fake anything. They say that Marilyn Monroe unalived herself. Well, that's not true, but the records claim that, oh, she had all kinds of things in her body. So, I mean, I don't believe what anybody says, frankly. I have to sort of like say, okay, this is what they're saying. Let's see if it's valid or not. Let's see, and that's how we can use the wisdom that comes from people who have been entrapped in this world. Use it as wisdom, because people who look at this from the outside will, even with Ryan, he believes Trump is a white knight. Why didn't he release things during his first administration? Why did David Boies not disclose to another victim who had evidence against Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton? It's not the first time that they come into view anyway. They've been alleged by many other people in other cases to have taken part in this ongoing situation of, minor people. Why didn't Trump expose this during his first administration? He had the ability, if he really wanted to, quote, crack down on this, but no, these are all it's a show for the public, because most of the public, they're not as well informed as you are. You know all about the Jimmy will fix it guy. You know all about the JE stuff. You know how these things interconnect and interrelate. I showed the other day on my Substack, and I think I made it free, how Robert Maxwell hired Jimmy for one of his firms. It's incestuous. So what the general public will believe is what they're told by legacy media. That said, legacy media is dying a quick, death. Sorry. Legacy media is no longer as relevant for many, many people. People are now learning how to discern, and they're watching your show, for example. You're like 1 million followers, and that's a fake number. To be frank, I've noticed how the numbers are fake, because I see that the people who watch, so like you can see your statistics in the back, right? So I've noticed that, oh, well, it's telling me that only X number of people are actually following or whatever. But then when you look at other numbers, they're different. So that even, let's say, even if it were true that you only had 1 million people subscribe, the number is actually perhaps 10 times greater reach, because not everybody subscribes, but they'll watch and then they'll share it with their friends. And so your following is much bigger than 1 million. And, and others like myself and the victims of the Franklin case and the victims of the JE situation, again, intertwined, we're shadow banned. We're not allowed. But thank goodness you're there and you're sharing this with the world. And so legacy media doesn't have a leg to stand on compared to you.
Yeah, more than half of the people who watch the videos are not subscribed. So get subscribing, folks. Thank you for that, Kirby.
Oh, and by the way, quick, yeah, you do this for Professor Hamamoto. Tell people to subscribe to my YouTube channel.
I was about to ask you, what can people look forward to at your YouTube channel and Substack in the coming week? And all of Kirby's links are in the description box.
Well, I'm always researching. I don't think there's a crevice that I haven't looked under, and I keep going. So there's a lot of information that's coming out, and I upload information daily, either on any one of my platforms. I have my Patreon, my YouTube, my Substack, which is where I really put most of the stuff that I feel uncomfortable with, and even there I have to be careful. However, I uploaded a receipt of Ghislaine Maxwell's sister, Isabel, purchasing one of my books. They join my Substack. They buy my stuff. Yes, they're in there. They want to know if they're concerned about what I have to say. Well, we have to know that I am saying stuff they don't want me to say. But Vicky Ward was also a member of my Substack. You should know the whole list of people I know are on my Substack. And a lot of this, sadly, is also related to the satanic side. It's all part of the same stew, let's call it. So yes, people, follow me on my YouTube. Make me visible to the world, please.
Indeed, and the links are in the description box. So thank you for joining us. That's fascinating what you just said there at the end. And, we hope to speak to you soon. Let's see what stories come out next. So viewers, please let us know in the comments what you thought about this. And we've got Juliet Bryant podcast coming next week. So stay tuned for that one. And we've also got an MK Ultra related survivor, Anna Lee, coming on as well, who was recommended to us by Charlie Robinson.